Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today, we read 4 stories from r/shortscarystories. Let's begin. Our first story is from Fireside Chats. Gizmo. When I was 6, my hamster Gizmo escaped. I cried for hours while my parents tried to console me. Even as they tucked me into bed, I was devastated. In the middle of the night, I woke up. It took a moment to understand why. In the still darkness, I heard something. Scratching. I sat up, seeking the source. It was in the wall, next to my head. I listened for a long time, and after a while, it quieted. Tired and confused, I laid back down and fell right to sleep. The scratching happened the next night, and every night after that. It wasn't incessant or grating, just loud enough to be acknowledged. I knew the walls were hollow. I'd seen plenty of movies where mice lived there. It must be Gizmo, I decided. He's telling me good night. I didn't mention it to my parents. There didn't seem to be any reason to. And every night, Gizmo came to scratch goodnight. I used to tap back, just to let him know I heard. 1, 2, 3. There'd be a pause, and I'd hear an answer. 1, 2, 3. No matter what happened, a bad test grade, a belligerent bully, a messy breakup, I fell asleep contented, knowing my little hamster friend was looking after me. Eventually, I grew up, moved out, and forgot about the whole thing. It wasn't until decades later, when my own kids wanted a hamster, that I remembered. As I started researching, something came to my attention. Hamsters only live 3 years. Our second story is from Deontistic. Buttercup. I don't have many friends, but I do have a little dachshund. I named her Buttercup. She's very affectionate and well-mannered, and she eats like crazy. I swear, she'd eat me out of house and home if I'd let her. I also have a pseudo-friend named Bruce. I say pseudo because he treats me pretty badly most of the time, until he needs something from me. Then he's all, "Hey pal, can you do something for me?" And you know me, I always can, and always do. Like Thursday, he asked me if I could fix this thing on his laptop. I told him to stop by my house on Saturday, and I'll give it a look. Like the good friend he is, he showed up at the appointed time. He also brought his dog, Bruiser, a big lab pit mix. "I hope you don't mind," Bruce said. "My girlfriend doesn't like me to leave him alone with her. He's pretty aggressive." "It's fine," I replied. "Buttercup's in the backyard. We can put him out with her so they can play." "Buttercup?" he queried as he followed me to the back door. "What kind of dog is Buttercup?" "She's a dachshund." We came to the door, glass, and there sat Buttercup on the patio, looking back at us patiently. When Bruiser saw her, his ears cocked and the hair stood up along his back. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Bruce asked, sort of sarcastically. Bruiser's pretty aggressive with other dogs too, especially little ones. They'll be fine. I opened the door, and Bruiser bolted through, hot on Buttercup's heels. Let's get started, I said, and headed to the kitchen. Bruce followed me, looking over his shoulder occasionally toward the backyard, a silly smirk on his face. I asked him what the problem with his laptop was. He told me it was something remedial. 5 minutes later, I'd solved his problem. "Man, you're good at this stuff," he exclaimed. "It's good to have a friend like you." "No problem." I motioned to the den. "Wanna watch the game? Maybe have a beer?" "Nah, I gotta get going." I shrugged, started for the back door. Bruce walked along with me, once again wearing that silly smirk. He seemed anxious for me to open the door, so I did. And there sat Buttercup, right where she'd been before, waiting patiently. "Where's Bruiser?" he asked. I shrugged again. "Bruiser? Come here, boy." I followed him out onto the patio. He kept calling for his dog. "Does your fence have holes?" he asked, but didn't wait for me to answer before heading out to inspect it. "Maybe he jumped it," I said. He looked like a jumper. "Maybe." He gave Buttercup a curious stare, then headed back toward my house. "I've got to go find him. He couldn't have gotten far." Just like that, he was gone. I looked down at Buttercup, found her looking up at me. "You're fat," I said, "and you're a pig." Our third story is from Fluffedpuppies. Pet. My dad said I'm not allowed to have another pet until this one dies. How unfair is that? He also said he'd know if I killed them on purpose, which I wouldn't do because I'm a responsible pet owner. If I get a pet, I strive to take great care of them, or at least try to. That's how it started with my current pet, or should I say, pets. Anything they could need was at their disposal. The habitat was a fun project that took quite some time. At first, I just tossed in a few rocks, but that didn't seem to work, so I stepped it up a notch. Plants were the first thing to be added, like the pet store recommended. Then there was fresh water, and that seemed to give them a reason to come out of hiding. I missed the days they were grateful for small things like that. As time went on, I learned a lot about them, like how to punish them if they were misbehaving. I observed them working together about half of the time. The other half of the time, they'd nearly rip each other's throats out over things I could never comprehend. Over time, they started to get more violent and destructive than any other pet I've had before. Not that I was perfect. Once or twice, I forget to turn off the lights and their water dried. A few times, I forgot to feed them. And let's not forget the time I spilt my glass of water onto the place they called home. It didn't take me long to regret my choice of pet. Hopefully, they'll destroy themselves soon enough. Our last story is from LoveDaMayo, my problematic eldritch zombie dog. Dear Mrs. Rubinovitz, I'm a big fan of your weekly columns titled, "No Frets with Your Pets." You really have a sixth sense for our four-legged friends, and I'm admiring your selfless effort to aid those who seek out your help. Now, it seems that I stumbled into the same situation as the people whose struggles I've read about countless times in your articles. I think I made an oopsie, and now I am trying to make the best out of the situation. The backstory is that my beloved dog for 15 years died a few months ago from cancer. I really can't get over the loss. I see him strolling around in my backyard whenever I close my eyes, and in my dreams, I hear the lovely barking he greeted me with every day I came home. It's hard, unbearable to be honest, So I did what every person overwhelmed with grief would have done in my situation. I visited an occultist website I stumbled upon in some old internet posts about deceased animals. I found a ritual to bring back your beloved pet from the dead. It was called Ritual of the Three Eels, and was translated from an old Sumerian mage's book. At least, that's what the internet said. It wasn't too fancy either, considering we were talking about thousands of years old practices to bring dead pets back to life. All I needed were the carcasses of 3 eels, nomen est omen, I guess, a donkey skull, and some chalk. The chalk I got in my local supermarket. Don't ask me how I obtained the skull and the eels, but I would have done anything for my beloved Guru. The ritual was unspectacular. I chanted the Sumerian verses I had printed out the best I could after preparing the ritual site one night in my backyard. And what shall I say? It really worked. Kind of. Guru did come back. Exactly from the place I had buried him. But it seems he brought something with him. He smells rotten, unsurprisingly, and looks disheveled. His once lovely barking has become a disturbing grunt. And he grunts all the time. The main problem, though, is that his back is totally bald. Not a single hair on it. Just holes spread all over. I tried to peek inside. They smell of rotten eggs, and I hear a faint buzzing coming from those holes. Something grows inside of him. The other issue is that Garo has absolutely no appetite for his pedigree adult grilled steak and steamed vegetable-flavored dog food. I could get other brands, of course, but considering that he tries to eat me, like, constantly, makes me doubt that would help. To conclude, Garo is still weakened, but I guess he will try to devour me as soon as he manages to break out of the room I locked him into. What advice would you give me right now? Thanks in advance. Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The stories in this video were read with the author's permissions. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the original Reddit posts. Don't let the shadows get too close.